Hi, everybody. Welcome to Xencelabs videos. We've got Scott Kelby in just a moment. You'll see him shortly. And Scott will be up here in just momentarily. He's getting ready for his massive demonstration.
It's not massive. It's 5 tips, Bill. It's going to last about a minute and a half.
Hey, did you want to, before we got a couple seconds here, did you want to you're gonna be sharing your screen. You are now a co-host.
Ooh,
co-host. Promoted.
This is so exciting.
I know.
All right, want to go to share my screen? Oh no, if I go to share my screen, it'll stop your screen. So we'll just wait.
We're actually live now, but we're not on Lightbox's website for another 10 seconds or so, and then they'll open it up.
That's good stuff.
Would you get a drink?
Why, Bill, I got Propel grape water.
Oh, I got
0 calories, 0 sugar, and 0 taste.
Aquafina.
Aquafina's trash.
All right, Scott, your video is spotlighted. So you will, as you talk, you'll always have your video up in the upper right-hand corner. So just be aware of that.
That's delightful.
Yeah, isn't that nice? Okay.
Tell me more, Bill.
We should be live. So let's go ahead and begin. I want to introduce, my name is Bill Lindsay from Xencelabs, and I wanted to just take a second to introduce one of my best friends. This guy is amazing. I particularly refer to him as Mr. Photoshop. Scott knows more about Photoshop than, oh gosh. I mean, put it this way, back in the day when I worked for Adobe, I was the national Photoshop specialist. Scott has blown me out of the water. He should be the national Photoshop specialist. Oh, wait, maybe he is. We'll find out. I want to do Scott Kelby. Scott is the president and CEO of Kelby One. He's also what he calls the original Photoshop guy. I say Mr. Photoshop. He's also the editor and publisher of Photoshop User Magazine. He's the conference technical chair for Photoshop World Conference, training director and instructor for Kelby One Live. So, and he's written, oh my gosh, you know how many Photoshop books you've actually written, Scott?
I've written just over 100, I think it's 102 books total. And a good chunk of them for many years were just Photoshop books. So I was only doing Photoshop books for many years, but I probably have, I don't know, 40, 45.
I can remember when we had the celebration
like
about you being the #1 Photoshop author. I remember that.
Yeah, that was cool.
Yeah. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Scott and let Scott have us a little bit of fun here. This is the world of Photoshop. So we're going to talk about all things Photoshop here. And, you know, Scott, one of the first things I want to do before you jump in, I wanted to ask you, how do people learn? What are some of the online learning experiences that people can go to and just understand and learn more about Photoshop?
Well, thanks for setting me up for that question, Bill. I'm glad you asked. Well, first, thank you for having me, Bill. It's very kind of you. I'm looking forward to hanging out with you guys for a while. So I make my living, I feed my family and all that stuff by teaching online training. We've been doing this for many, many years. Up until 2 years ago, we still did in-person training too. I would do a seminar that goes across the country. These days, it's highly focused on Lightroom because a lot of our audience is photographers. But I spend a lot of my day trying to convince them why. Well, I'll explain it to you the way I explain it to them. Is Lightroom to a photographer, right? I'm just talking to photographers here. I would tell photographers, so Lightroom is great for making your pictures brighter or making them darker, or you can make part of the photo brighter or darker, and you can change the white balance and you can add contrast. And that's what Lightroom's great for. But Photoshop is where the magic happens. The really amazing stuff, the really fun stuff, the stuff that keeps you up at night working on stuff, that happens in Photoshop. Nobody's up late at night, 2 in the morning going, oh man, contrast, this is great. But man, Photoshop, and I think one of the reasons why Photoshop is so awesome is that, well, we'll use Lightroom as an example. Lightroom has a bunch of sliders and they're delightful. You know, they make things brighter and darker, or they add contrast and stuff, but there's only so much you can do with it. There are no limits to Photoshop. You can do anything with Photoshop. If you can imagine it, you won't be limited by what Photoshop can do. You're only limited by your own skill. Like I may not know how to do something, right? There may be a thing in Photoshop, I don't know how to do that. But it's not because Photoshop won't do it. It's just because I haven't learned how to do it or I haven't figured out a way to do it yet. So I spend a lot of my time teaching Photoshop classes, Lightroom classes, all kinds of digital photography and related classes, doing live shoots. I did a very fun thing. I did a tour called Light It, Shoot It, Retouch It, and the whole tour is now online. But what I would do is I would do a live. We would start with an empty studio. We would build all the lighting. We would bring in a live model, which are so much better than dead models. Bring in a live model. We would do the live shoot, so they would see the lighting. They would see the shooting, and then I would retouch the images that we just took in that class. And when I say retouch, we would do, some of the standard retouching stuff that you would expect, right? But we also did a lot of neat studio techniques, like how to remove light stands and how to create a reflection on the floor, make it look like they were posed on plexiglass instead of just a roll of paper. And so there were all kinds of special effects and stuff that we did as well, and adding extra lights. And there was a lot of fun stuff. And so a lot of what I do today is that online training. My company releases a new class every single week. So it's a full length class. They go anywhere from 1 hour to 2 hours, depending on the topic, right? If it goes over like an hour and a half or 2 hours, then we move on to a part 2, right? So other than that, that's what we do. That's our gig, is teaching people online. And we do, instead of us doing our live seminars anymore and doing our live Photoshop World Conference that we've been doing every year since 1999. Bill, you were at the very first one back in 1999. And so this year, we normally were in Las Vegas, but of course, because of COVID and stuff, we did it virtually. Just recently, we did the whole Photoshop World Conference online, and it was a blast. It was surprisingly well. It worked. It came off well. It was well received. And I remember right after it was done, I got a text message from a woman that I know, and she had been to 9 Photoshop Worlds. And she said, this was as close to the real experience of being there as you could possibly do. And we did all the same stuff that we normally do. We did our award ceremonies. We did our opening keynote from Adobe. We did our opening movie that is kind of a tradition. We did Midnight Madness, our party games and stuff at night. We had the band play. My band often plays at Photoshop World, not always, but sometimes. And we did a live stream from a club. We got a club to let us come in and play. Not many clubs that'll let my band come in. But yeah, we went and played a couple of sets. It was just a lot of fun. We all did drinking games. Every time Tony, our guitar player, did a solo, everybody took a drink. So by the end of the night, everybody was plastered because the guy solos all night. Anyway, it's a lot of fun. But COVID, we were already doing online. That was already our business. So it's been a very interesting couple of years in trying to do even more online education. But obviously, I think that's where a lot of the future was going before COVID. We were moving to the online training platform. Look at what we're doing here today, right, with this webcast.
Yeah.
So so it's an exciting time for online education. I think it's a lot of fun. We're finding newer, better, easier ways to do things, and finding ways to better connect. And that's one of the big things that we're working on, is building community. It's very easy to build community at a conference in person. But we're finding ways to build it in our forums and in our chats and in our events that is working like shockingly well. Like people are really coming together in these forums in ways that, we've seen it to some extent, of course, on social media, where people create groups of like-minded people and stuff. But we're really seeing friendships and people bonding over stuff and people helping each other. I always say, everybody needs Photoshop friends. I'm telling you, Photoshop is not a program you want to go alone. You want to be able to have somebody to call and go, how do you do this one thing? Or remembering everything in Photoshop. There's 122 tools. There's 97 filters or some ridiculous amounts of stuff.
Yeah.
And you're like,
I was going to say, I know that anything you can do inside of Photoshop, there's got to be at least 5 to 10 different ways to do the exact same thing.
Yes. Yes. It's the most redundant program ever. Yeah. There's because you can say, well, how do I blur a background? Well, you could use lens blur. You could use motion blur. You could use the Gaussian blur. You could do it on a layer. You could do it as an adjustment layer. You could do it as a smart, it's just on and on and on and on. And you don't always remember. So having Photoshop friends that you can call and ask stuff is very important. And so we spend an awful lot of time in our own communities at Kelby One and at these conferences, getting people together, making friends and making Photoshop buddies. We all need Photoshop buddies.
How about we do this, Scott, since it's everything Photoshop or the world of Photoshop.
Yes.
How about it? You give us kind of your, what you want to say, top 5 tips, maybe a sneak in a little extra one there. What do you think? Give us your top 5
tips.
Photoshop tips.
I would be delighted, Bill. As it happens,
I'll say this. Now, I've been involved in Photoshop since the beginning. I was the very first Photoshop specialist back in the day. And let me tell you, I'm going to watch this and I can tell you, even though Scott's going to give 5, I can guarantee there's going to be 1, maybe 2. I don't know. I'm going to guess that there's going to be several I'm going to learn from this man. So Scott, you want to take it away? You want to switch your screen to share?
You're putting so much pressure on me. I brought some really lame, crappy tips, and now you're no. These are easy tips. There's nothing I'm going to show you that you will not be able to do. I'm not going to show you some crazy thing, and you're going to go, "Well, I could never do that." You're going to go, "Oh, I got this." It's very easy stuff, but I think it's really helpful and handy stuff. So that's what I tried to put together for you. I actually pulled some of my favorite things from a class that I did at the Photoshop World Conference. There was a Photoshop tips and tricks class. And so I pulled a few of those of my favorites from there. So let me go ahead and let's share that screen, Rooney. And let's pop over to, yes, it's going to knock Bill's screen away. And we're going to bring my screen.
While you're doing that, I've already got a question for you.
Oh yeah, sure, of course.
Does Adobe inquire about your thoughts on Photoshop?
Oh yes, very, very often. There are all kinds of little features and stuff that are in Photoshop that it came directly from us. Now, it's not like I sit in a room and come up with these ideas myself. I represent thousands and thousands of Photoshop users all over the world. So when I go to Adobe and say, hey, everybody's asking for this, it's just not like Scott's wish list of stuff. So I don't feel like it's coming from me. I just feel like I'm the voice of this community of Photoshop users. So I remember Brian Hughes, who was at the time the senior Photoshop product manager, giving a speech at the Photoshop World Conference about the things that they've added to Photoshop from us, from the idea from us and from our users. So yeah, I talked to the Photoshop team quite a bit. I have friends on the team that I can call up and I'll make little videos and go, is there a way we can do this? In fact, I got one in there last year and it's going to sound really simple, but I made the case that this is something that affects us every single day. And it's a pain in the butt. And if they could just add a little checkbox, and son of a gun, they went and did it. So what the feature was is, you know how you work in layers, right? So, when you're building something in Photoshop, you can have 10 layers or 20 layers. And some of them I have turned on and some of them I have turned off, right? They're not always all on because sometimes you try something, it doesn't work. You think, well, maybe I'll go back to it. But let's just say that I have 22 layers in my document and 6 layers are hidden. Well, when I finally go to choose flatten, right, and get rid of all my layers, every single time I do it, a dialog box appears on screen and say, discard all layers or flatten the other layers too, the ones you don't want. You want those flattened? I said to Adobe, when in the world am I going to choose flatten, but I want to keep the 6 layers I don't like? But I have to see it every single time for 30 years. It's not 30 years. It's from when they introduced layers, which was Photoshop 3.0. And by the way, historical data here. The first time I ever saw layers in Photoshop, it was Bill Lindsay, working for Adobe at the time, that demoed it, that showed a sneak peek of it at one of my Photoshop seminars. Bill got up and showed layers and the whole crowd was like, I mean, it was a life-changing thing because for the first 2.5 versions, because there was Photoshop 2.5, there were no layers. Everything was on the background layer and you had to use channels and it was a crazy world. But anyway, when you go to flatten layers, it would always stop and ask you that. And all I asked them was, can you please put a checkbox that says, don't show again? always flatten my layers. I don't want to see that checkbox. If I choose flatten, I really mean it. I don't kind of mean it. I don't 50% mean it. It means flatten it and also flatten the unused hidden layers. And son of a gun, they put it in there. So that was a big thing. And I was very excited to have that little, because you know what? It's the little things that make the difference. I flatten layers all day, every day. Yeah. And I have to hit that checkbox I hit the OK button every single time. Now it's not even a part of my life. That's why I can't even remember the exact words, because for the past 2 years, it's just flattens, and I'm so happy about it. So to answer that question in as long a way as possible, yeah, we talked to that. I'll try to over-explain that.
On. Give us that first tip.
All right. So my first tip is it's actually a couple of tips in one. So it's like a multi-tip. So I'm hoping that you guys have heard about a feature called Select Subject. And it's brilliant. It's powered by AI, and it's powered by machine learning and some robots from Terminator. It's a whole bunch of things. And what it does is they fed into a computer all these different objects, so it recognizes things. So if I wanted to select this woman on this background, I can just choose a selection tool. All right, so we're going to you just go choose like the magic wand or kind of whatever you want here. Let's just go. What's going on with my thing? There we go. Just choose the the quick select tool or magic wand, wherever you want. And when you do that, it brings up this bar right over where I need to be. Wow, my zoom bar just came up and it's covering half of my Photoshop tools. Anyway, under here, let's go away. I want the zoom bar is actually covering the Photoshop bar. Let me move it out. We're
not seeing it because it's
okay, good. You guys can see it. It's called Select Subject. All you have to do is choose like this tool, magic wand or quick select, go click Select Subject, and it will literally look at the image and select it. Now, where you would get trashed all the time was if you had someone with like flyaway hair and all these edges, it would do a terrible job with it. Well, after about 6 months or 8 months of machine learning, it learned how to do hair, basically. So now today, it doesn't just select the hard edges, it selects things like hair too. We still haven't got to the tip yet. I'm building up to the tip. Okay, so once you have that selected, if you want it to go on its own layer, you can press Command J on Mac or Control J on Windows. Watch, I'll go over here and I'll hide the background layer, and you can see, look, it did a really, really good job of, it was one click. I got with 2 clicks. I clicked on the tool, I clicked on Select Sample, and it did that. Now I'm ready to give my tip. So my tip is it's something I've been using for years. Oh gosh, the dogs are going off. So if anytime that I'm streaming, we get an Amazon delivery, all 3 of my dogs explode like the house is on fire. So if you hear dogs barking, there's nothing I can do.
It's the new norm, Scott. It's the new.
They're out of my control. These dogs. That's right. They're lovely dogs, but they're the best dogs. Okay. Now here comes my tip. So we have this image on here, but you can see, there's a little dropout in the edges of her hair? Like it's kind of dropping out a little bit and stuff.
Yes.
Well, there's a couple of different ways to fix this, but the easiest way, and hear me out when I say this, because you're going to, what? We're going to duplicate the layer twice. What it does is it builds up pixels behind her hair, and it kind of fills in the gap. So watch, I'm just going to use the keyboard shortcut Command J, which is on Mac. On Windows, it would be Control J. I'm just going
to. Uh-oh.
Again,
Scott, you're breaking up a little bit there.
It fills. And I'm showing you a before and after.
Well, Scott, you broke up a little bit there during that. So try that again. Just show us the before and after.
Okay, so here's the before. And then you duplicate the layer, let it fill right
Uh-oh. Well, all right, Scott, we'll get him back on here in 1 second. Let's see if I can get him back over. Looks like we lost Scott's video. I know where he was going with that. While we're waiting for Scott to return, would you guys, oh, there he is. He's coming back in. There we go, Scott. Hey, yeah, we lost you.
That's unfortunate.
Oh, so we lost your video
back?
too. So we got your camera. You're back. Sort of.
Any luck?
You're still freezing. You can share your screen again.
Can you see?
Not yet. Oh, there you are. There's your camera. No. While waiting for Scott to come back. Tell you what, is there any questions about Photoshop that when he does come back, we can go ahead and get him rolling? Scott, I see you're unmuted. Bear with us, guys. Gotta love the fun internet with all this fun stuff going on. Hey, Scott, you're muted. I can see you're on there.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yeah, we can
Are
hear
we
you.
back?
You're back.
Can you see my screen?
Yes, we can see your screen. And we can see you've duplicated the layer once already. So what he was trying to do while we're waiting for him, because that was one of the questions.
It's a lot of fun.
There you go.
Yeah, actually, I duplicated it twice. All right. So,
Okay.
so when you duplicate the layer.
There you go. You're back.
Right. All right. So when I'm going to duplicate it one more time. So it just saves your, you know, even if you go and you select and mask or whatever and do the.
So his audio keeps fading
Want to
out.
do that? I hold the shift key. The audio's fading out. Oh,
Yeah.
come on, stinking internet. This is not making Bright House internet look good.
What the purpose of this technique is to do is what Scott's doing is really bringing in those really fine hairs.
They told me it would be.
They lied. So by duplicating the layers Scott is doing, what it's doing, it's actually bringing in those fine hairs that you normally would be losing on that first selection. So it brings them back in, which is really kind of cool. So you may have noticed that on that very first page you saw, or the very first time you pulled it out, a lot of the fine hair toward the edges was just gone. And by duplicating the layer, if you look now where he's got it, where he's got 3 layers of that woman, you can see the fine hair is really back. It's all back. And Scott looks like he might be back. No, you're frozen.
I'm hoping.
Oh, there you are. There you are.
Wow, my internet's terrible. I don't know what's going on.
That's why you pay them the big bucks, right? Bright House.
Our internet bill's horrible. What for how badly Bright House is working today? It's Dark House. It's not Bright House.
There you go. All right, you're back.
All right, are we back? Can I roll on? Or
Roll
are we still?
on. You are
okay. Good. Okay. All right. Look better. We're going to merge them together by pressing Command E on Mac or Control E on Windows. Now, what I want to do is I'm just going to take this layer. Now, we used to have to copy the image and move layer. Copy and paste a layer. You can just and hit paste, and it just copy and paste the actual layer. Now, but we can see a problem here. Well, there's numerous problems here. One is you can see a white from the background she was originally formed. It doesn't look like she's really in this city scene whatsoever. It would still be a little sketchy anyway we look at it. But the first trick I want to give you, this is, well, I guess this is the second tip of this multi-level tip, is go under the layer menu, all the way at the bottom to matting. And one of the things you can try is to remove white matte. So what this does is it kind of removes that edge fringe around the edge. Let's choose it and you'll see what I mean here. You see little, and it kind of replaces the white glow that's funky with a black glow. There you go. See that? Are you seeing that, Bill? Am I still on?
You are.
Okay.
Hey, Scott.
Got
we
that
turn your
done.
video off?
Another line of defense. Yes.
Scott, turn off your video. Let's see if that helps your poor Bright House company there.
If I turn off my video.
Yeah. Eliminate just that part of the video stream for you, the bandwidth.
Well, if I turn off my video, you won't see what I'm doing on screen though, right?
No. You're sharing your screen. I'm talking about your camera.
Oh, turn off my camera.
Yeah, that would help. Sorry.
Okay.
Camera.
See me because I'm not doing anything too spectacular. Hang on 1 second. Let me go turn that off. Now I got to figure out where the thing is. There we go.
There we go.
All right. I'm no longer. To help fit in a little bit better is to go get the eyedropper tool. And what I would do is I would steal one of the colors that's the prominent color in this. So one of these blues will probably do it over here, right? Just choose blue and that's the foreground. Selection back around her. So I'm going to hold the Command key on Mac with the Control key on PC, and I'm going to click right on the thumbnail itself. So when I click on the thumbnail, you can see it just filled her with the selection. So we kind of got our selection back. We're going to add a layer. Look how it blends in now. And now it looks real. Okay, there's more to this tip. So we just basically covered her in blue. What we're going to do is change color completely. We'll
Gotta love Bright House.
Still see what's going on, Bill?
Oh yeah.
All right. Hey. Yeah.
Get about every 10th word from you. And your video just cut out. Oh, Scott just dropped off. Well, we'll get Scott back on here in 1 second. Let me share my screen. While we're waiting for Scott to return, hopefully we got some questions going on here. Let's see if I can answer any. He was actually going to turn that layer probably to one of the modes to be able to blend that in, get that blue back around the edges there, which really does make it look like she's part of the shot now. So you'll see that in just a little bit here as soon as he comes back in. Let's see here. Scott's coming back in. Let's get him to unmute that, get him back up on screen. Oh, there it is. Yeah, Scott, she looks pretty good.
All right, so you can.
I can see her. Your audio is really struggling.
Very frustrating.
There you go. Okay, you're back.
Oh man, my internet is.
What did you do that layer? You changed that blue layer to color mode, and that gave us the ability to be able to get that up there. Can we see? If I bring my cursor in, can we see that? No. I'm gonna say if I control that, I could show you that. So Scott, what Scott did was the color, he made a duplicate of the layer and then filled it with that blue that he pulled right out of the photograph. And then by changing that layer that has all blue in it of the girl to, if you look just above it, it says the mode was color. And that gave us that nice appearance that she was actually still part of the photograph when they took this photo. And he's trying to come back in again. And while we wait, we'll bring that back up again. Yeah, 50% blue of but the key was, the question is did you do 50% blue? And the key was making it actually blue in layer, the color mode, using the color mode, which is just up above that there. And that gave you that nice tone that she has that looks like she's actually part of the shot. There we go. I can see your cursor moving around, Scott. You were sharing again, and I'm not hearing anything. Of course, you might be muted. Oh, you're still muted, Scott. Hit that microphone. There we go.
All right, can you hear me?
I can hear you.
All right, so I'm tethered to my telephone, Bill. That's how bad things have gotten. I'm tethered to my phone. Not a great ad for Bright House Internet. I've been out here 4 times this month, so you know, a lot of my life is now dedicated to Bright House. Can you hear me? Yes, and you can see and hear? Yes.
Yeah. Yes, you're good.
Okay, thank goodness. Okay, so we added a layer, we filled it with blue, and we changed the mode to color, so just the color comes through. We're not done yet, but we're close. So at this point, what I do is you can flatten the image just for fun. Oh, look, and no dialogue came up to ask me, do I want to flatten? Okay, so the last thing I would do, and I do this on all composites, and this, there's a bit to do if you really wanted to composite this, but I'm just showing you a couple of tips. The other thing that I would say is I like to, at the end of a composite, add one color over all of the images. So you basically have 2 images here, a background and her. I want to add a color tone. So I would go to like Camera Raw. And over here, there are 4 square icons. If you click on that, then you've got all these different artistic looks that you can apply with just by moving your cursor over it. It gives you a preview of different looks. So you could apply one and it applies it to the whole image, and it kind of unifies the colors when you do that. Here, there's modern ones here. You can just choose one of these and it just unifies and yes,
yeah,
Bill?
I was gonna say you're showing just that Photoshop window, so you're not seeing the pop-ups. I'm seeing it right now. I'm seeing it right now. It just showed up because you're in the raw window. But when you went and selected it in your they weren't showing up. But you're in the Camera Raw now.
This is going really well, though, Bill. I think this is going smooth and professional and very slick and fast and crisp. Okay, so anyway, as you move your cursor over each of the thumbnails, it gives you a preview. So I'm looking for something to unify it to where, like this particular one, the lighting looks more realistic, this modern 05. And once you get there, if you like the particular look, you can move the amount slider to get more or less of the look. So you have a little amount slider for any of those. And they've got an artistic set, a modern set, a vintage set, if you want more of an old-fashioned kind of film look here, but they all stink, so I don't use those. We'll use the modern ones. So anyway, that kind of unifies the look there. And this is a desaturated look there.
Scott, uh-oh. Bright House is struck again. Wow. Wait, here he comes back in one more time.
Hi, Bill.
Hey.
This is going great. We should do this more often.
Hey guys, I jumped on really quick. Can they hear you on the live stream?
Yeah, I see a yes. When
Okay.
he dialed in at first, no, when we were having audio problems, he's now dialed in.
Okay, perfect. So I'm gonna.
All right, Scott, you can share your screen again.
I'm not sure I want to, Bill.
I know, right? God. I think Bright House is going to be coming out to your house again tomorrow.
Yes, I do think so. Okay, shall we move on to another tip? Because if I stay on this tip any longer, I may jump out the flipping window.
Another tip. Let's give us another one.
Yes, I think that's a good idea. I think it's a good idea. So let's go over here, Bill. So let's go down here. Here's something interesting. So you probably know about Liquify, right? Liquify is up here in the filters, Liquify. Let's make sure that this window appears. Do you see the Liquify window?
Yes.
Because if not,
yes.
Okay, you do see Liquify. Okay. Well, so Liquify, when it was born, was born to move people around like they're made of a slow molasses, right? So the idea was you could just move people and, it would like lovely. All right. So that was the original idea behind it. It was going to let you move pixels like that. That's not as attractive as it possibly could be. Here, let me reopen it. Okay. Now they did something pretty brilliant a while back, which was they added face recognition, and they added all of these sliders to where you could change your subject's features, their nose, their mouth, their face, their eyes, whatever you want to change. So you could change their face with, and she doesn't really need any retouching. But you can do whatever. You wouldn't really do these things, but you can change their chin height and their forehead height and just whatever you want. All right. So, and you probably already know that. I'm not probably showing you anything there that you don't already know. However, here's where I've got a couple of tips for you. I have 3 tips actually for you in here. Oh, by the way, I just want to point out there is a Stylus Pressure checkbox here. If you want to use Stylus Pressure, right? So you can just turn that on. Just
what does that mean?
There, but that's not one of the tips.
What does that mean, Stylus?
Stylus. Well, I'm using a pen. I'm using a tablet, and you might see it right here. Can you see? Oh, can't see my screen.
It didn't have to be a Xencelabs tablet.
It is a Xencelabs medium. Yes, it actually is. So yeah, that's what I'm using, and I'm using a stylus, or what I just call a pen. But sure, stylus. Anyway, but yeah, and I use the thick one too. It comes with a thick one and a thin one, and I like the thicker feel. But let's move on to our tip, shall we? Okay. So if you go over here in the toolbar, right, there's all these little tools. There's a tool that looks like a person. And if you click on the person tool, it brings up, look, if I move over her eyes, now I can control her eyes on screen. So you can do these things and make adjustments and see how the adjustments affect your image. You don't have to move sliders. You can do it in a very hands-on kind of way, and you can adjust. I'm just moving. This is not an accurate retouch. I'm just like, make her eyes bigger. These are not real retouches. They're just examples, right? But anyway, you can adjust all these things just by moving over it. And once you do it this way a little bit, Bill, it's hard to go back to moving sliders. It's just all right here. It detects the eyes, the nose, the lips, the face, the jawline, all that stuff. It does. Like, you can go out here, and where's the thingamabobber that you move? Well, don't move this one because it doesn't work. Anyway, I don't think I've ever gone out there. I just saw it appear, and I'm like, The heck is that? All right. I guess that's just showing you there's a face there. Okay. So that's tip number one, is that you can use this little face and move the facial parts around. That's number one. Number two is when you are using the brush, one of the things, let's say that you wanted to work on her hair over here and you wanted to kind of pull this down a bit. Well, you can see the gap it just created up at the top. Yeah, it's not awesome. So what I would do for most of my career is once I had the hair and stuff where it was, I'd go make a little brush and I would push that back up to where you didn't see it, right? And eventually it would look, okay, let's undo every bit of that mess because I'm going to show you a better way. There's actually a checkbox that no one ever knew what it did called pin edges. When you turn on pin edges and you make your brush nice and big, it will not move that top. It pins the top so you can move stuff and do whatever you want. And it does not, you don't have to go back and fix the edges. Why that's not on by default, I have no idea, but it should be. Anyway, that's called pin edges and it works wonderfully well. So there's that. Now I have another little tip for you for Liquify, my third Liquify tip. So here we have Jason. He is our producer and director at our company and super, super great guy. We were doing a location shoot in Ybor City, Florida, and he insisted on posing with the models. So I needed a group shot. So he was more than happy to do it. Let's go into the filter menu. Let's go to Liquify because here's where things get sticky. What happens when there's more than one person? Now what? Actually, go over here and look. It says select face. You can choose face 1, 2, or 3. Or you can hit this button called barking dog sound. And it will make the sound at any time of barking dogs. So anyway, so these are the 3 faces. So you can say, all right, let's adjust this face and we'll go over here. We'll do something very wild, smiles. And you can see it's moving her face on the right. And then you can choose face number 1 and we'll move the smile again. And now she's kind of sad on the left and then vice versa. So anyway, you can, it does recognize however many faces that you have in there, it recognizes them. So there's just a couple of Liquify tips. All right. Are you ready for a mind-blowing tip? Because we've had some not so mind-blowing tips thus far. All right. This next one, I think, is wild. All right. So I want to paint a drop shadow under here, right? Easy enough to do. You just get the brush tool and make sure you got a nice soft brush. Of course, you could paint you could make a new blank layer and paint under it, right? And just paint yourself a drop shadow or something there. That's very well done. I think that's as good as this podcast has been. There we go. All right. And so, well, it's unfortunately it's over the phone. So I would have to create a new layer and all that. Prepare to have your mind blown. Are you ready?
Yeah.
Because when you go to the brush tool, you know that there's different blend modes, right? There's like dissolve and darken and multiply, right? But brushes have those too, right? But the brush tool itself has one that is a mind blower. Watch, it's called Paint Behind. It knows where the pixels are. And when you go to paint, look, it paints behind it. Come on, that's crazy. I know. It's the only tool that has it. It's got a mode, paint behind, and son of a gun, it just lets you paint behind. Crazy. It's a world gone mad. While we're doing that kind of stuff, let's just close that. That was a really quick tip. So let's just say we have, oh wait, I want to go over these TVs. Let's say we have a TV. Why, here's one here. Let me blow it up a little bit. So I want to create a drop shadow for this TV. And we're not going to paint it with the brush. We're going to be a little more accurate. We're going to use the Polygonal Lasso tool, which is also known for most of us as the Polygonal Lasso tool, except for one day a mathematician was watching one of my things and said, you're calling it polygonal and it's the polygonal. And I'm like, yeah, whatever. Okay. Here's what we're going to do. We're just going to draw kind of a rectangle that kind of mimics the shape of the rectangle of this TV. So I'm just going to click because the polygonal the Polygonal, excuse me, Lasso tool is kind of like a connect the dots tool. You just click and it draws a line between them. Now I'm going to make a new layer below it. So we'll click on the background and we'll just make a new blank layer. All right, so I have that shape there, and I can just fill it with black by pressing Option Delete on Mac. Would be Alt Backspace on PC, and you get, you know, a shadow-ish kind of thing. It's very hard shadow, so we'll just go and soften it by adding a Gaussian blur, and we'll blur it a bit more. There we go, something like that. So we have a little bit of a shadow there, and I'm just going to tuck it back a little closer to it. Now it's a little more shadow than I want, you know, so you can erase that back part if you want. You can just grab an eraser tool or whatever you like and just get rid of that. I don't want you to see that stuff back there. All right, so that is one way to do it. Now, another way to do that was when you had your selection, instead of just filling it with a color, what you could do is fill it with a gradient. Just go from black to white. So we're going to just drag a gradient to where it's not black. Oh, actually, I want to make it shorter. Let's just start here at the edge and just go a little like that. See that even just a hard edge shadow looks better and a bit more realistic. So we could just go filter and then just blur it a little bit. And there you go. That looks quite a bit better. And then maybe lower the opacity just a hair to make it look a little bit better. Now, sometimes what I will do is I will make a duplicate of that. I'll duplicate that layer. You watch, it's going to get a lot darker, right? Because it kind of multiplies, right? And what I'll do is this. I'll take the first one I drew and I'll stretch it out a little bit off the sides. And then I'll lower the opacity. So you barely see the second one. So it's there, but it's just barely there. And then I'll darken the closer one. That's like right up under it, just to give a little more depth to the shadow so you don't see as much. Now, while we're doing that, there's another way to do shadows. Let's do this. Let's take the layer that we have. And you could do the old drop shadow thing, but it's kind of, you know, fakey because your drop shadow is basically casting a shadow onto the wall behind it, like it's floating in space, right? You know, but one thing that you could do with this is there is a feature called, you go into the layers panel, right? We added a drop shadow over here under the effects menu, right? Just so you know, drop shadow effects. And it's called Create Layer. And what it does is it takes that drop shadow layer style over there and puts it on its own separate layer. So now you could just erase all the stuff that you don't want. Like, for example, all this stuff under the TV. Unfortunately, just erase the TV because I wasn't paying attention. There, click on the shadow layer and just hit delete. And then, well, I deleted the whole thing. That's really very, very well done. So let me just move this around here. Hold on. That was very, very poorly done. Here we go. We're going to just take this part of the shadow. Yes, hit delete. And then it leaves the little shadow under the, well, I didn't erase quite enough of it, did I? Let's go there. And there we go. It left a little bit of shadow underneath, but there's actually an easier way to do that too. Duplicate the layer, fill this copy of the TV with black, go to free transform. And, you know, free transform is the thing that lets you rotate it and scale and do all the different stuff. What we're going to do is hold the shift key and squash it down. And this is going to be our shadow right here. Okay. Now here's what I like to do for a more realistic shadow. We're going to hold the shift key, excuse me, the command key on Mac, the control key on Windows, and click on that little shadow. And we're going to hit delete. So all we have is the selection. We're going to grab that gradient tool. And instead of dragging down, right, if we just drag down, it's going to be okay. But you can see it's going to be dark on one end and light on the other, or it's going to be dark this way. What we can do is we can get a reflected one. Go up to the toolbar, go to the fourth one, the fourth little icon, and that will make it dark in the middle and then go out lighter to the edges like that. We're going to put it behind our object so it's not a shadow sitting on top of it. And then when we blur this one with a little Gaussian blur, you get the darker shadow under the base. All right. And then it goes lighter out here. And that's a very common way to do a product drop shadow there. And then you can make a darker one under there if you want. You could use that little paint behind trick, right? Go get the brush, get a small little tiny brush, set it to paint behind what? And then just draw a little very thin, tiny shadow back there. You could do that. That's very poorly done, but you get the idea. Okay. Now I'm going to undo that a couple more times because that's pretty horrible. All right. Now I'm finally getting to one of the tips I really wanted to get to. Once you have your shadow done for this TV, you can copy and paste layers, right? You can go copy, go to another TV and just hit paste. And unfortunately, it shows up where? In the middle of the image. It didn't show up under where it's supposed to. So this is the tip. Let's undo that. We're not going to just paste. Instead of just hitting paste, which just throws it in the center of your photo, you see where it says paste special? It's more special. Go here to paste in place and watch. It appears in the exact same place from where you copied it. So then I can go to another document, paste. Whoops, I just completely left the document. Let's go back to Photoshop. Nicely done. There we go. In keeping with how this is done. And hit paste in place, and then it appears right under there. Just like you hope that it would. All right, well, I know that we're about out of time, so I only have a 30-second tip ready. Here we go. First off, let's see. Are we still broadcasting? Am I still there, Bill?
You are.
Okay, I didn't know if things went kind of quiet. All right. So if you have a document, an image on a layer, right? So it has to be on a layer, but I have this photo and it's on its own layer. Now, if you don't have it on a layer, if it's on a background layer, right? If it's flattened, the quickest way to change a background layer into a layer, you see the little lock icon over there? It shows you it's locked. Just click on it. Ooh. And now it's a regular layer. Now, when you do that, something magical appears. Right here in the properties panel, a new button shows up. You know what it's called? Remove background. You know what it does when you click on it? Removes the background. Isn't that cool?
Where has that been all my life?
Here, go to remove. Go to your image. Make sure it's on its own layer. Go to the properties panel, remove background. Bonk. Even adds a layer mask so you're ready to go.
Yeah. Gee, that's sweet.
Isn't that sweet?
That's very sweet. You know how many hours?
I saved that one. I know. It's amazing. It's one little click. Boom, remove background. Wow.
Give us one more, Scott. Give us one more.
Okay. So this one is just one I'm going to tell you, because it doesn't really need an image, but I was just telling a buddy about this today. And I said, I'll bet I got a Photoshop trick that you don't know. And he's like, oh, come on. Cause he's pretty good at Photoshop. And I go, I'm telling you, dude, you don't know this one. I said, you know about select subject, right? So select subject we saw with the woman with the hair, right? Remember her back here? Yeah. And we grabbed the selection tool. Let me just grab it. We grabbed the selection tool and we clicked select subject. And it selected her. Right. But the one that nobody knows about, Bill, that is so secret and so mired in secrecy that no one knows it exists, is for selecting the sky. So you probably know there's sky replacement, right? You could drop a sky into an image that, if it senses there's a sky back there, you can throw clouds in it. But what if you just want to change the brightness of the sky, or you want to make the sky more blue or less blue, or you want to make it look like sunset or any of that stuff? It will automatically use AI to sense where the sky is. You just have to know where the secret thing is hidden. It's hidden under the select menu, and it's called sky.
What?
That's it. You hit sky and it selects the sky in an image, and then you can adjust it. Now, I'll see if I have a sky image floating around. I wasn't prepared to do this very scary trick, Bill. And if you give me do we have a sec for me to go find the sky?
Yeah.
All right. Yeah. Okay. So I want to stop sharing, Bill, and we'll look at you for a second.
Oh, great.
You're very handsome. And while we're doing that, I'm going to go find very quickly, I might add, a picture of with the sky here, and it won't take me long, or it might, but I doubt it. Let me just go look in my folder of travel images, and there's usually skies in there of some sort. Let's see if I can find a travel photo. A travel photo. Well, what do we got? Here's one. Is this? All right, I'm trying to find a photo. Just almost got one. It's almost there, Bill. May I call you Bill?
Yeah. Mr.
All
Scott.
right, thank you. Thank you. Okay.
Mr. Photoshop.
All right. So let me, I found one. I found a picture. Let me find what we call a screen share here on Zoom. I got to get back to Zoom now. This has been swell. Let's go to Zoom. Let's go to shared screen, and that is share my screen. I'm going to share it. All right, can you see that?
Coming in, not there yet, almost. There it is. Oh yeah.
Oh,
there you go.
All right, so I want to change the brightness of the sky or whatever. Okay, and you just go under select and you choose sky, give it a second, and it goes, you mean this area? And there, that's it. It selects the sky. So now you could go to levels or whatever you like to use, and you could make your sky darker, or you could make your sky brighter, but it selects it for you. How sweet is that?
That's pretty sweet too.
And like nobody knows it's there. It's like the super mega hidden thing. Now, do we have any more time? Or are we done?
We're pretty close to being done, but I do have one question.
Yes, sir.
Through, well, several questions. Well, this was pretty interesting. What is your most favorite Photoshop tool?
Oh, that's a good question. I really like not just the selection tool, not the select subject, but I really like select and mask for getting, people off their background, because I showed you the one-click method and then some tricks. But if I was really going to make a serious composite, I would go one step further. I would use select subject to start my selection, and then I would go to select and mask, which is a brilliant tool. If you get good at it, oh my gosh, it's just incredible. I would say I really like that particular select and mask, because you can do things in it that when you're done, you're like, I can't believe that worked. Like, wow, that worked really well. That's really fun. So if I had to choose one, I'm going with select and mask.
Very cool. Very cool. All right, I'm going to go ahead and switch you off.
I think you're doing the right thing.
Maybe. There we go. There we go. Scott, thank you very much. I appreciate you taking the time to share with us.
Yes, that was wonderful, Bill. I think I did a super job. I think my internet was fantastic. I think my robotic presentation was as slick as it could be.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you again, Scott. I appreciate you guys all watching. Scott, if you guys do want to watch some of our other stuff, we've got a lot of speakers scheduled as well. And I will sign off now and say thank you, Scott, for being here with us. And we'll
you bet, Bill.
Take care, guys.
You know it.